special button. All right, good morning, everybody. Today we are doing Daf Dalid and Hay, and I believe we left off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 lines from the top on Daf Dalid Amud Aleph. So we are holding in middle of the first sugya in the Masechtas Gittin. The Mishnah starts off with this halacha that a person, a shliach, that brings a get over from Medinas Hayam, they have to say the special formula. They have to say b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtam. And the first sugya, the Masechta is really dealing with machlokas Rava and Rava as to exactly why we have this this requirement. So Rava was of the view that it's because Rava was of the view that we know that the Torah says the Katzav law that there's a requirement to the sofer needs to write the get lishma, and he was concerned that people in Medinas Hayam, the sofers, the miyut of them, weren't careful, and therefore we need the shliach to just confirm that the get was done lishma. Rava said, no, that's really, I mean, obviously the get needs to be written lishma, but we're not concerned that sofers wouldn't have done that. Our concern is that if the guy's coming from, it doesn't have to be a guy, it can be a girl. If the girl is coming or the guy is coming from Medinas Hayam, the reality is, should the husband come in the future and say, this is a bad get, I don't know anything about the get, we're not going to know the shliach, we're not going to know who the edom are, they're coming from somewhere else, and therefore we need the guy to come into the shliach, to come into Bezdin and say, and again, for whatever reason, that makes everything better. The Gemara on Daf Beis and Daf Gimel really dealt with why is this edus, shouldn't we need 2 people? That's all in previous stops. But the immediate question that we're dealing with right now is, who is the Tana of this Mishnah that requires that requires both the ksiva and the chasima, because both the 2 Tanaim that the Gemara was dealing with, both Rav Meir and Rav Elazar, would seem to require one of the 2, but not both. And the Gemara gave one answer that really is Rav Elazar, and the only time he doesn't need the Eidei Chasima, that's after if there are no Eidei Chasima, but if there are Eidei Chasima, that he does have a requirement. That was kind of answer number 1. Answer number 2 is going to be much, much simpler, and we'll pick it up over there. Rav Ashi Amar. So Rav Ashi said, we're on Dalid Amud Aleph, maybe 7, 8 lines from the top. Rav Ashi Amar Hamani, who's the Tana of this Mishnah? It's Rabbi Yehudi. It's just Rabbi Yehuda. This Tana, this is the Mishnah, the Purish Mishnah, Daf Chav Aleph. Rabbi Yehuda posel achtei ksivaso v'chasimaso b'talish. Rabbi Yehuda says that he requires both the ksiva and the chasima to be happening on a piece of parchment or something that's tallish from the ground. This was something that we kind of saw a little bit on yesterday's daf, that there's a requirement that a get needs to be tallish. What if you wrote the get while it was still mechuber to karka, and then you cut it and then you signed it? What would be? So Rav Meir said that would be fine, but Rabbi Yehuda says absolutely not. I need the ksiva and the chasima to happen with tallish. So there's our Tana. He requires both the ksiva and the chasima. So the Gemara asked the obvious question: what are we doing, spending an Amud Gemara trying to make this fit between Rav Meir and Rav Elazar? Umeikara, my time, Ulumakmina, like Rabbi Yehuda. Again, this is a Mefurisha Mishnah in Andaf Chaf Aleph. Why are we trying to make Rav Meir and Rav Elazar work? Why don't we just say this? That was the answer to our question. It was just the third Tana, Rabbi Yehuda, right? So the Gemara says, no, Mahadrina and Rav Meir, we wanted to make Rav Meir work, the Stam Masnis and Rav Meir, because we know the general klal that Stam Mishnah is generally Rav Meir. So we wanted to make our Mishnah feel like Rav Meir if we could. And Madrin and Rav Elazar, and we also wanted to make Rav Elazar work the Kaim Alon Hilchsak of a Seva Gitzim, because we have a special klal, and this I think comes up throughout the Masechta a little bit, that Rav Elazar, for whatever reason, obviously not in every single situation, but in a lot of key, Gittin sugyas, we paskin like Rav Elazar. So all things being equal, we would have wanted to paskin like either Rav Meir or Rav Elazar, and that's why we tried very hard to make it work for Rav Meir or Rav Elazar. The reality is, we also have a third Tana that we can just make it work that much easier, and then ultimately we that was the second answer to the Gemara. Okay, but even though, for really the remainder of today, frankly, for the rest of Daf Daled and Daf Hey, we're going to be dealing with, again, the same machlokas Rabba and Rava and Rayas either way, and questions either way. So that's really the sugya, right? Is the reason for this halacha in the Mishnah, is it because of Rabba's concern of being on the Shema, or is it Rava's concern that ain't Eidim Mitzvah L'Kaim? So Tanan. Later on in the Mishnah said, Rabbi Gamliel Omer Af HaMevi Min HaRekem U'Min HaCheger. So when the Tana Kama started the Mishnah, he said, "Maybe get Min Medinas Hayam." I think the Rishonim all spoke out. He very specifically did not say Mechutz La'aretz, right? He said Min Medinas Hayam. So there was some sort of mashmos in the way that the Tana Kama phrased this, that we're not literally dealing with Chutzlars. We're talking about places that are like far away from Eretz Yisrael. like America or Europe or whatever, the UK, whatever it is, but not necessarily border towns. Comes along Rabban Gamliel and he says, no, this halacha isn't only true for America, it's even true for Rechem and Chegar, which I guess are towns that were just on the border. It comes along, there was a third shita, Rabbi Eliezer Amar Filu Mikfar Ludim Lelud, not even Rechem and Chegar, which are like border towns, but even Kfar Ludim to Lud, which again, it was in the Mishnah, it's a little unclear exactly what the machlokas is. But Amar Abaya explained the machlokas between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer, and he says, Ba'ayaros hasmuchos la'eretz Yisrael muvlos betchum eretz Yisrael eskina. This Kfar Lud to Lud, and again, our scroll didn't have a very good picture of this, but if you think about, I guess, one of the borders of Eretz Yisrael, so it kind of, there are towns that I guess the way the border is written, it kind of goes like this or something like that. So you have certain towns that are on the border of Eretz Yisrael, and then you have others that almost are muvla, they're almost like swallowed by Eretz Yisrael. If you go to the north or you go to the south, you're going to be in Eretz Yisrael. These are towns that are technically they're in Chutz La'aretz, not actually in Eretz Yisrael. But there's more of a reason to think that they're even closer to Eretz Yisrael. They're muvla almost by Eretz Yisrael. So the way that's how Abaya is understanding the machlokas between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. But Amar Rabba Bar Chana, he was saying Lididi. So he's sitting in Bavel right now, and he's saying, I saw Farludim Lelud. He's telling his colleagues in Bavel, and he's saying Lididi Chazili Ahu Asra. I saw this town Farludim, and Vahavi Kamabi Kubi. And he's basically telling his colleagues in Bavel who've never been to Eretz Yisrael that it's like the distance between Farlud and Lelud is the distance between Northbrook to Rogers Park. He's trying to like give him some sort of reference, for people who've never been there. But the point is, Miklal, the Tanakama Savar Hani Lotzar. The Tanakama clearly held that all of these border towns, whether it was Farludim Lelud or Rechem or Chegar, they were close enough that they would not, a shliach from there would not need to say B'panai Nechta B'panai Nechta. So the Gemara says, "My lab b'hakamifli." What exactly is this machlokas between the Tanakama on the one hand and Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer on the other hand? So Demar Savar lefish ein b'kiyan lishma b'hani gimiri. Maybe the Tanakama held like Rabbah, and the concern is that sofers might not have done a lishma, and these sofers that live in the border towns, they probably were trained in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore we don't have a concern. But Umar Savar, but Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer, they held if ain't Adam between the Kaimo. Their concern wasn't the Shema. Their concern was that it wouldn't be easy to find Adam, the people that signed on the get, and therefore Bahani Nami Lo Shchichi. And therefore, as long as you're not in Eretz Yisrael, if you're, you got to pass a checkpoint or whatever it is to get from here to here. So then the concern is the same. It doesn't really matter so long as you're outside of Eretz Yisrael. But the Gemara says no. Rabba Mataras Latame, Rabba Mataras Latame. Each of Rabba and Rabba can learn the entire Mishnah as if all the Tanaim hold like them. First, we'll do Rabba Mataras Latame, to Kuli Alma Labisha Miki and Lishma. All three of the Tanaim, they're all in agreement that the concern here is whether the sofers would have written the get Lishma. The Hakabakam Tanakama Sabrahani Kevin to Smuchos Big Merkamiri. The Tanakama said, listen, my concern is, again, it depends on where the guy was trained. If he was trained in America, we don't trust him. If he was trained in a border town, so presumably he was trained in Eretz Yisrael, whatever it is, and we're just not as concerned. But Asra Gamliel Lememar, so he says, it's just a machlokas mitzias. Muvlos Gemiri, I would agree with you in Farludim. That's already so close, or it's so muvla that those sofrim are probably pretty good. But Smuchos Lo Gemiri, But Rechem and Chegar, I don't think that, maybe those sofers aren't so good. But Asr, Rabbi Eliezer Lememar, the Meblos Nami, Shlo Tachlok B'Mdina Siyam. And Rabbi Eliezer says, even if I agree with you on the Metzias, but the reality is I like a low plug, I like a clean division, so it's Chutz La'aretz, that's it. We have a concern. If you're not in Chutz La'aretz, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, then you don't have to say it. But if you're outside, you have to say it. I don't really care exactly which town and how close, whether you're Muvla or not. And Rava would say the exact same thing, according to the way he was understanding the Mishnah. So the concern wasn't so much the Shema, it was, can you ultimately find these Edom or not? Tanakama Savrahani came into Smuchos Mishka Shlichi. They're close enough, and therefore you have to find these Edom. It's not that hard. I would agree with you when it comes to these border towns that are like Muvla in Eretz Yisrael, but Smuchos Lo Shlichi, but Rechem and Chegar, those aren't that close, and therefore I would have this concern. And Rabbi Eliezer comes and he says again, kind of this low plug attitude that Rabbi Eliezer sometimes takes, which is, I believe that if you're in Chutz La'aretz, I'm concerned. If you're not in Chutz La'aretz, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, then everything's good. Okay, so the bottom line is, from our Mishnah itself, Doesn't seem like we have a raya one way or the other, but we're going to keep trying. Tanan, we're going to now focus on the next part of the Mishnah. Chachamim omrim eino tzarich sheyomer v'fanei nechtam v'fanei nechtam ela hamevi medinas hayam vehamolech. This is almost sounded like a fourth sheet in the Mishnah. These Chachamim said that anyone that comes from Chutz La'aretz needs to say v'fanei nechtam v'fanei nechtam, and even someone who's going from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. So the Tana Kama made it sound like they're coming from Medinas Hayam to Eretz Yisrael. Comes along, maybe the fourth sheet of the Mishnah, and he says, no, I think this is true, even if you're going from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz or to Medinas Hayam. That's exactly where we're going. Exactly.
Can't find a guy either way.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're about to say. So McLeod, the Tana Kama, Molech Lotzar. So it sounds like the Tana Kama is not concerned whether you're going from Eretz Yisrael to Medinas Hayam. My la v'hakam iflagi, as Alan was pointing out, isn't this goof of the machlokas mar? The Tana Kama says my concern is Amiki and Lishma. I only care if you're coming from Medinas Hayam this way. But if you're going from Eretz Yisrael that way, the Sofrim and Eretz Yisrael are good. I don't have a concern about Lishma. The Hani Gemiri, Umar Savar, but the fourth shita, the Chachamim Basrai, they hold if you ain't Edom in the Kaimo. And if that's our concern, so I don't care if ultimately the get is given in America or in Israel. If the Edom are in the other country, then we're gonna have a problem. So it doesn't matter, which way you're going. You should have to say b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam. B'hanami lo shlichi, sorry. But again, the Gemara says Rabba mataras l'taimei, the Rabba mataras l'taimei, Rabba mataras l'taimei. He's going to say the kuli amal b'she'em b'ki and l'shma. Everyone, both the Tana Kama and the Chacham Basra, they're all going to say the concern is that you need it to be l'shma. The hacha b'gzeiras molech atu maybe kimiflagi. But the only question is, do you make a gzeira by molech atu maybe? Because as you were pointing out, Alan, right? If that is your concern, so then the second sheet of the Chacham Basra don't really make a lot of sense. Why are they making someone that's coming from Eretz Yisrael to Medinas Hayam and say v'fanei nechtam? If our concern is the Shema, it was on the Shema. So he would say the only reason why I'm concerned is the Gzeira atu the other way. I want it to be a low plug. If people are traveling from country A to country B, you always have to say it. I don't want anyone to get confused. And that was the machlokas. So Tana Kama Savar Logas. The Tana Kama says, I don't think we need a Gzeira. I think our rule is fine. If you're coming from Medinas Hayam to Eretz Yisrael, you need it, not the other way. So Tana Kama Savar Logas Rina Molochatu maybe. Rabbanan Basroi Savrikas Rina Molochatu maybe. That's how Rabba would explain the Mishnah. Rabba Mataras Tamei. Rabba's going to explain it his way. He's going to say, "Zakuli amal efisha ein edim between the kaimo." Really, everyone is in agreement that the reason you have to say b'fanei nechtam is because you might not be able to find edim. The question is, so what about the Tana Kama? Why would he not require it if you were going from Eretz Yisrael to America? Mm-hmm. He says, no, they really do. But Rabbanan Basrai lefrushe taima the Tana Kama huda asu. Really, everyone agrees you do require it. The Tana Kama, for whatever reason, Rashi speaks out. For whatever reason, he only kind of spoke out one direction, not the other, even though he really does hold that both directions, you understand, comes along the Rabbanan Basrai, and they're just explaining the Tana Kama. They're basically saying, maybe he wasn't so clear, the Tana Kama, so let's just reiterate that this requirement of saying goes both directions. But again, both Rabba and Rava can make the Mishnah work according to their concern.
We have the fourth case where
we're going to get into all these cases. Yeah, we're going to get, but it's worth right now. It is worth speaking out. So on Daf Beis Amud Beis, we're going to get into this again right now. On Daf Beis Amud Beis, the Gemara asked my Beinai, and the Gemara had three nafkaminas between Rabba and Rava. The first one was, what if two Edom come? Two Edom come and say, but Fenenu Nechtam. So again, this is previous days stops, but the reality is Rava would say, I don't have a problem with Kiyum Shars if there were two Edom. Rabba would still say, I'm still concerned with the Shema. But if that was the first one, the second one is, what if you're in the same Medina in Chutz La'aretz? So Rava would say, I'm not concerned about, you can find the Edom, right? If we're all in Rogers Park, we all know each other. But Rava would say, I don't trust the CRC. Like, what do I care if you're in Rogers Park? And then the third one was Medina Medina be'Eretz Yisrael. Again, Rava would have said, if as long as you're in Eretz Yisrael, I think Lishma is okay. Rava then, so those were the three nafkaminas, and we're going to now work, and we're going to see, we're going to start asking a bunch of kashas based on diukim that we're going to make in the Mishnah. So again, one of the cases in the Mishnah, Tanan Hamevi get Medina Limedina b'Medina Sayam. So if you're going from Medina Limedina, so France to London, Tzarech lomar b'fanai nechtav u'b'fanai nechtav. And the Mishnah said you would have to say b'fanai nechtav, and this presumably everyone agrees to. Rabba would say lishma, that's why you need to, and even Rabba would say people in France, and other people in London, and vice versa. But the Gemara makes a diak. Haba osa Medina b'Medina sayam. But it sounds like if you were just in France, lotzar, then you wouldn't need to. So la Rava nicha la Rava kasha. That's a kasha on Rava. If you're only in France, they're not saying doing it lishma in France necessarily, right? So then isn't this a raya to Rava and not Rava? So Rava would say lo tema haba osa Medina b'Medina sayam lotzar. Don't make that diak. That's not the diak you should be making. The diak you should be making is ela ema mimedina limedina be'eretz Yisrael. The Mishnah said medina limedina b'chutz la'aretz. You need to say it. Make the diak this way. You dafka need to do it when it's medina limedina b'chutz la'aretz. But if it's medina limedina be'eretz Yisrael, lo tzara. And now that becomes a raya to Rabbah, because that means that medina limedina be'eretz Yisrael. You don't need to say it. Why? Because the concern is lishma, and we're in Eretz Yisrael. But according to Rava, now you've got a problem. But Rava's gonna answer. He says that can't be pshat in the Mishnah because habehed yaktanila. We actually have a similar case like that directly in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says hamevi get the Eretz Yisrael eino tzarach lomer v'fanai nechtav v'fanai nechtam. So why would you make the diak your way? Make the diak my way. But Rava says back, if I was only trying to learn that halacha from that line, havamina hanimili di eved. I would think that bidi eved, if someone's coming from Eretz Yisrael and they don't do it, it's fine. But lechachila you shouldn't. Kamash malam the diak that says that no, even if you're going from town to town in Eretz Yisrael, you still don't have to do it. But the bottom line is, I guess, there's no, hachrach either way. The reality is you can learn a diak one way, you can learn a diak the other way. And in fact, the next piece of the Gemara is going to say, some people learn that entire sugya in the reverse. So v'ika demosiv lahachi. Some people ask the question not as a kasha on Rabba originally, but as a kasha on Rava, right? The Mishnah, the line of the Mishnah was, hamevi get min Medina le Medina, b'Medina sayam. If you're bringing a get from France to London, tzarach lomer v'fanai nechtam v'fanai nechtam, and they asked the diak this way, ha min Medina le Medina be'eretz Yisrael lo tzarach. They asked the diak like the second way that the previous Gemara did. It sounds like it's dafka min Medina le Medina bechutz la'aretz, but Medina le Medina be'eretz Yisrael you wouldn't need it. So now le Rabba nicha, this is support to Rabba, but le Rava kasha, it's a kasha on Rava. Why would you need to say v'fanai nechtam v'fanai nechtam if you're going from Haifa to Yerushalayim, right? The reality is, why would you not need to say it? The people in Haifa might not know the people in Yerushalayim and vice versa. So if you're Rava and your concern is ein edim mitzvim l'kaimo, you should require someone to say v'fanai nechtam v'fanai nechtam. But Rava's going to give the same answer we just gave. He's going to say, don't make that diak. Lo tema medina lo medina be'eretz Yisrael lo tzarech ela ema haba osa medina b'medina sayam lo tzarech. Learn the Mishnah like I would have said. Make the diak to say that no, it's dafka if you're going from France to London. But if you were staying in France, you wouldn't need to. And now that's a support to me. Aval medina le medina be'eretz Yisrael my tzarech. But the Gemara says that that's true. Are you then telling me that in Medina le Medina in Eretz Yisrael you would need to say b'fanai nechtam? If that's the case, listen, hamevi Medina le Medina stam. Why did the Mishnah need to say maybe Medina le Medina b'chutz la'aretz? That's when you need to say it. Just cut out even the possibility of any of these diukim. Just say Medina le Medina stam, and that would be mashma whether you're in Eretz Yisrael, whether you're in chutz la'aretz. So this is a kasha on Rava. Why would the Mishnah even say Medina le Medina b'chutz la'aretz? Just say Medina le Medina, and we'll know, because according to you, it doesn't matter where you're in Eretz Yisrael or you're in chutz la'aretz. This is the kasha on Rava. So Rava says, La'olam Medina le Medina be'eretz Yisrael nami lo tzarech. He says, you know what? Actually, I'll do a little bit of a 180. If you were in Eretz Yisrael, even in Medina le Medina, you wouldn't need to say it. Why? The kavan the ika ole regalim mishkach shlichi. Because I have less of a concern of ein edom mitzvim l'kaima once we're in Eretz Yisrael, because 3 times a year everyone comes together to Yerushalayim. So even if we have to wait a little bit, ultimately we'll find the edom if we need to. So as long as we're in Eretz Yisrael, I'm not really concerned. And if you're in chutz la'aretz, that's where I have my concern. But the Gemara says teinach bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim. Bizman she'ein beis hamikdash kayim, which by the way is when this conversation is happening, right? This is Rava and Rava. So like that's great.
Also, the Tanai arguing thereafter.
That too, right? So it's like wonderful. I mean, like that may have worked at some point, but tachlis. I mean, right now, what how does this help? So Ma'ikala Neymar. So he says a similar teretz came in but they dinim the kavi mishkach area. And in Ezra's time, they set up that on Mondays and Thursdays they have but they dinim throughout the country, whatever it is. So again, the point is, if people are going to have to come to big cities, we have a way, we figured out transportation into big cities. We have a way of finding people so long as they're within Eretz Yisrael. Once you're in Chutz La'aretz already, then it's a little bit more challenging. But so long as you're in Eretz Yisrael,
Even these answer in Eretz Yisrael is much smaller than other countries. Therefore, that's why even going to fight this.
yeah, no. That happens to be just a very interesting point to I didn't realize it until I saw this Gemara, that it sounds like the Indian of Ole Regalim is dafka for those that lived in Eretz Yisrael. So if you lived in Babel or you lived in America, even in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, it sounds like there was no, the Gemara could have given the same answer, right? Everyone comes to Eretz Yisrael 3 times a year. It sounds like it's dafka the people that lived in Eretz Yisrael that had to come, not so much the people that lived outside of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, either way. Tanan. So we're going to keep moving along in this Mishnah to see if we can prove one way or another. Tanan. This is the end of the Mishnah. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer afilu mehagmonia lahagmonia. So I think our scroll translates this as like a jurisdiction. So it sounds like even if you're in one town, but there's political strife or whatever it's going on, and therefore you have checkpoints set up, and therefore it's not that easy to get from one side to the other, you still have to say b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtav. But Amar Rav Yitzchak, he was explaining the Mishnah, and he said, Ir achas ha'iseh Eretz Yisrael, there's one town in Eretz Yisrael, Asasias Shema, and the name of the town is called Asasias. V'hayu ba'beis hagmonios, and we had this situation where we had, 2 sides of the town that weren't getting along with each other. She'em makbidin zalzeh, lefikach, hutzruchu lomar mehagmonia lahagmonia. Even from one side of the town to the other side of the town, you have to say, b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtav. L'rava nichel, l'rava kash. This is a bomb kash on Rava, right? Because here this is a town in Eretz Yisrael, it's in Asatias. Presumably, the Sofrim there know what they're doing, and they're going to say Lishma. And yet, the concern seems to be because we can't get the people from one side to the other, and therefore, you need to say b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtav. So the Gemara is going to do a full 180 right now, and it's going to say, to answer this kasha, Rabba islay de Rabba. You're right. The reality is Rabba agrees that's a valid concern. He just holds there's a second concern. So we were learning up this entire sugya that Rava had his way of learning and Rava had his way of learning. Now the Gemara is saying that no, everyone agrees Ein Edom Mitzuyim L'Kaimo. And therefore, if you're ever going from one town to another town, specifically in Chutz La'aretz, you're always going to need to say b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtav. Rava just happened to have a second concern, and that is if you're in Medinas Hayam, there's another issue of Lishma. Okay. So now the Gemara said, with that in mind, remember, we on Beis and Beis, we had 3 different nafkaminas. We spoke them out earlier. Now that Rabba agrees to Rabba, Elamai now. So what's the nafkaminas now? Ika beinayu, we're down to 2. Dasuyu beitrei. If 2 Edom came from Medinas Hayam, so again, both Rabba and Rava, if the concern is Ein Edom Mitzuyim L'Kaimo, this is Kim Sharos, and we'd be okay on that front. But if you're Rabba and your concern is Lishma, you would still have a concern. Inami ba'osa Medina b'Medina Sayam. What if everyone's within France? So again, there's never going to be a concern about Ein Edom Mitzuyim L'Kaimo because we're all in one city, we all know each other. Rabba is still going to have a concern about Lishma. What was the third one from Beis Mabez? Was Medina limedina in Eretz Yisrael. Now no one's going to have that concern anymore because if your concern is Lishma, you're in Eretz Yisrael. There's no reason to be concerned about that. And if your concern is Ein Edom Mitzuyim L'Kaimo, the Gemara just said that because of Oli Regalim or because of Batei Dinim, people get around Eretz Yisrael. That's never a concern. Okay, we are ready to move on. Tanan, Hamevi get Medinas Hayam. What if a person brings a get from Medinas Hayam? And the guy is incapable. Again, I'm saying guy, but that's a loose. It's just a shliach. It could be a girl. The shliach is unable to say b'fanai nechtav u'b'fanai nechtav. So the Gemara says, or the Mishnah says, im yesh alav edim. So then, assuming there's edim on the star, so he's sky mechosmav. So all you got to do is be mekuyim the star. The Gemara asked, what is this goofy case? So a person was unable to say it. What does that mean? That he wasn't able to say it. Ilema cheresh. Maybe he literally couldn't talk. Right? It was a cheresh who stam cheresh and shas is always a eno shamas and eno medaber. So maybe the assumption is that this guy literally can't talk. But the Gemara says that can't be the case. Cheresh bar asuya getahu is a cheresh, someone that can be a shliach for a get vatnan. Hakol kshem lahavias a get chutz micheresh shota bekata. So that can't be the case. So Ba'amar of Yosef Hacham Askinon, the Mishnah must be talking about a guy Yon Shenasnula Shehupikach. He became a shliach when he was able to talk. Below his piklomar, and somewhere along the journey, he had some episode, and now he's no longer able to talk. Maybe he had a stroke or whatever it is, God forbid. So that must be what's going on over here. The bottom line is, what do the Mishnah say you got to do? You just need to be Mekayim the signatures. This sounds like a Mefurish Araya to Rava, right? If our concern is Lishma, so why do we care if the Edim on the star are good? The whole thing may have been written, not Lishma. That's the problem. So Bishlama, if your concern is Ein Edim Mitzvah Lekaimo, so all this we have to do is do Kiyim stars. We can do Kiyim stars, and we're good to go. It seems like a Mefurish question on Rava, right? So the Rava Nicha, the Rava Kasha. But also, Skinon la'achar shalamdu, a little bit of Jewish history. Apparently, there was a time when the sofers that were in Chutz La'aretz weren't as careful or didn't know to be as careful to write a lishma. But then there was, I don't know, all of a sudden people learned that this was something that they needed to do. And we don't have as much of a concern, la'achar shalamdu. The Gemara says, like, why are we waiting, 3 blocks to say this? So then yachol nami. I mean, like, what are we even talking about? So even if a person can speak, why do we even make people do this anymore? If all of a sudden there was some breakthrough and everyone knows how to write the get lishma, so then like, why are we even talking about this?
Internet.
Yeah, right. There was whatever it was. Someone got an email.
Yeah, YouTube video.
Exactly. So the Gemara says, no. Even achar shalamdu, still gzeira shama yachar rava l'kulkul. Even achar shalamdu, we still make people say it because of a gzeira that maybe people will forget again. So the Gemara says, ihachi. I mean, so how did we answer your question? Eino yachol nami. I mean, okay, so then we're back to square one. So if you're saying there's a gzeira, so then again, why is just the kiyim shtaros okay? If this guy can't talk, so then he can't say it, so then we should have a problem. The Gemara says no, because this case is a goofy case. Pikeach v'nischaresh miltad lo shlicha. This case of a guy that was able to talk and then had a stroke or something. This is obviously something that's not shliach. Umiltad lo shlicha lo gazer b'rabbanan. Once we're dealing with a gzer d'rabbanan, we're not going to be gozer on such a goofy case. The Gemara says, is that true? The isha lo shlicha. If a woman, she's allowed to be a shliach, and a woman shliach is apparently like, so that is like really not shliach. So if that's the case, right, we shouldn't make her say it either. But Utznan, we have a Mefurish Mishnah, Isha Atzma Mavia Geta, even literally the wife, right, or about to be ex-wife, she can bring her get. But if you're telling me that when it's not shliach, they don't have to do it, why would we force her to do it? So the Gemara answers, because we don't want to, it's kind of like a low plug. You're right, maybe we shouldn't have to do it, but we don't want people to get confused, and therefore we would make her do it. Just bottom line, both Rashi and Tosfos speak out. So aren't we back to square one again on our pikach v'nischaresh? If you're telling me there's just some low plug, so then shouldn't we require everyone to do it? And they said, no, again, that's a different style of case. It's where people have the ability to say it. That's where we'll say the low plug. Where someone can't talk, that's already something else. But either way, the Gemara asks. So the case would be
when she took the get,
exactly.
she was divorced.
So the Rishonim speak out that, and these are Mishnayos later on, but the Rishonim speak out that a husband can, just like you can say to your wife, this is a get, I want it to be chal after 30 days. They can say, this is your get, but it's not chal right now. I want you to go to the Bezdin in Yerushalayim, and I want you to say, I'm the shliach laholacha for my get, and she would have to say, b'fanai nechta. It's a goofy case. It probably doesn't happen, but that happens to be, if the wife is, literally. But the Gemara could also just as easily be talking about just a regular shliach that's a woman.
You didn't have to, yesterday, you didn't have to get in place.
Right.
So it was a zero later on, that was added later on. So this is already, it was by initially by Rishon, just hadn't going to get it. There was no need to go into the base.
Yeah, I mean, on Amud Beis, we're going to talk about when you do this procedure, how many people do you have to do it in front of? But presumably, I mean, that's in the times of like Rav Yochanan, that's well after. Exactly. But the bottom line is, if you're saying there's a low plug, and we don't really care who the shliach is, you always need to say as a gzeira d'Rabbanan, v'fanai nechtam, ihachi ba'alnami. Then the husband himself should have to say this. And Alama Tanya, we have a brayta that says, "Who atzmo shehevi geto?" If a person himself brings a get, and again, to your question, I mean, why would he be a shliach? But again, there's some goofy case where a person wants to bring as a shliach for some reason his own get. But in that case, ein tzarach lomar b'fanei nechtam. But again, if you're telling me there's a low plug and every single shliach needs to do this, even a woman, which is not shliach, So shouldn't we make the husband do it? Why do you have a Mephorash Brayta that says that when a husband himself does it, he doesn't need to say b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtam? How do we know that the thing was lishma? So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Time of my amar abanan sarach amar b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtam. Why do we even have this there in the first place? Dilma asi bal ma'arer pasale. Our whole concern is that a husband's going to come in and say this get's not a good get, and then we're going to be up a creek because how are we going to be kind this thing, right? If the husband himself is bringing a get into Bezdin, what are we concerned about? That he's going to say it's a bad get? He's the one bringing in the get. So when he's the one bringing it in, of course, we don't have a reason to say b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtav. Okay. Tashma, we're going to keep going. Debayamine Shmuel merav Huna. So Shmuel asked the kasha to Rav Huna. Shnaim sheviu get Medinas Yam. You have two people that are bringing a get from Medinas Yam. Shrichen shemer b'fanenu nechtav, u'b'fanenu nechtam. Oh, ein shrichen. Do they? If we have two people, not just one, do they need to do it or no? Amar lei, ein shrichen. No, they don't need to do it. Well, how do I know? Uma ilu yomru b'fanenu gersha milo mehemni. What if they came in a bezdin without a get and they said we can be made that this woman got a get in France? I mean, it's 2-8, of course they'd be believed. So they're also believed that they literally have the get and they say, and they give the get. So again, l'rava nicha, l'rava kasha. So this kind of supports, if your concern is Akim Shtaro's concern, so then you're right, 2-8 should be fine. But if your concern is l'shma, why do these 2-8 help? They're not telling us that it was on the shma, they're just telling us that it happened. So again, it seems like a kasha on Rava and support for Rava. The Gemara says, "Hachamayaskinon." Same answer. La'achar shalamdu ihachi. So then chadnami. I mean, so why dafka 2? If it's after it's la'achar shalamdu, so then you read the same shlach levatari we had in the beginning of the Amud. The Gemara says, no. 1, we would still require to say b'fanai nechtav because gzeira shema yachzor davar l'kulo, because the Rabbanan still made the gzeira even after it was unnecessary, just in case it ever became necessary again. Ihachi beitreinami. So then how did we answer our question? So then even 2 people, even they should do it. So beitreit in ma'asid gita milsav lo shlicha. It's not usual to appoint 2 shliachs, and therefore milsav lo shlicha lo gazer berabanan. But the Gemara is going to same shliach l'vatari about isha lo shlicha. An isha is not shliach, and utanana isha atma via gato vachli atma shlicha lomar b'fanai nechtav b'fanai nechtam. The Gemara gives the same answer. Shlo tachlok b'shlichos, because we want to have a low plug. Tosfos speaks out again. Even though we're saying lo tachlok b'shlichos, 2 shliachs is fundamentally different from 1 shliach. So when there's 1 shliach, we would say low plug, even if it's a woman, even if it's whatever. But where there's 2 shliachs, then already we wouldn't have this gzera. Hachi, the Gemara says, just like the Gemara asked earlier, Baal Nami, even the Baal should have to say it. Alama Tanya, who atmo shebi geto, eino tzarech lomer afanai nechtam afanai nechtam. The Gemara gives the same answer. Time of my amarabanan tzarech lomer afanai nechtam afanai nechtam. Our whole concern is that the husband's going to come in and say this was a bad get, where the husband himself is bringing in the get. Of course, we don't have that concern, right? The guy's not going to walk into Bezdin with his own get and then later say, I didn't give a get. What are you talking about? You were the one that brought it in. Tashma. So we're going to keep going. Hamevi get Medinas Hayam. What if a person brings the get from Medinas Hayam, and he gives it to the woman? Below Amarlo, and he didn't do it. He messed up. We all messed up, but he didn't do it. So the Gemara says, Im Niskayim Bechosamav Kasha. So the psak is if we can, be Mekayim the signatures, then we're good to go. V'im lav pasal habi. But if not, then it's not a good get. So why is Kiyam Shtaros okay? Because the Gemara explains why the Kiyam Shtaros is okay. Because lo hutzrufu lomer v'fanei nechtam v'fanei nechtam lahachmir allow el lahakil allow. The reality is the reason why we're okay with the Kiyam Shtaros is we were never trying to punish the woman. It was just a practical thing. We don't want the husband to come and complain. You're right, and then we're going to be up a creek. So long as we can be mekayim the eidim, then we're okay. But this seems like another mefurish araya to the concern being that we're not going to be able to find the eidim. If our concern is lishma, again, why do we care if we can mekayim the signatures? That's not our concern, right? Our concern is that maybe the sofer didn't do it properly. So this seems like another raya to Rava. You're right. It's a mefurish raya that the concern is only Ein Edim between the Kaimo, and not Rabba's second concern of Lishma. You're right. So again, but the way the Gemara, for some reason, the way they're phrasing these questions is the Rava Nichel, the Rava Kasha. But yeah, I guess it's really more like, so the Rav Akasha, Hachamaya Skina, the Gemara says, no, what's going on over here is La'achar Shalamdu. Again, this is just talking about after Sofrim worldwide took a course and understood that they needed to do a Lishma. How does that answer the question? We had this, we've been saying that there was this Gzera, that they still have to do it. So the Gemara gives another answer, Kisha Nises. No, the lady already got remarried. Once she already got remarried, we're not gonna, if the whole concern is really just like Zera, Shema Ziachar, Kulo, once she got married, then already we're not gonna worry about it. The Gemara says it's a fine answer. That's just not what the Brisa said, right? The Brisa said we don't need to do it. Why? Because so the Gemara says, "Ihachi havi lo hutzru kulomar b'fanei nechtam lahachmer la'el lahakal mishum denisesu." If the reason why we're not forcing them to redo the get is because she's married, that's what the Brisa should have said. But that's not what the Brisa said. What the Brisa said was we don't need her to do it all over again, is because the only reason why we even make a shliach say this is to be makel and not to be machmer. And therefore, once we did kiyum shtarus, we don't require it anymore. But it seems like we're kind of not saying the real answer. What the Brisa should have said was, we're not going to make them do it over again because she already got married, right? And it's only Xera, and therefore, so the Gemara said, you're right. Hachi kamar. The Gemara, they're saying this is the real answer was Kisha Nises. And if you're going to tell me, okay, I don't care if she got married, the reality is the get was a bad get, and therefore let's make her, leave her husband and redo the get. So that's where the Gemara said, "Havi lo we're not going to make her leave her marriage and redo this whole thing over again, because the entire purpose of making the shech do this in the first place was to be makel on the woman, not to be machmer." The Gemara continues, "Taimamai," turn the page, yeah. "Taimamai, why do we even, make a shliach say this? Because Dilma asi bal ma'arar upasale hashta bal lo kama'arar ana nekam v'nerer Allah." So the point is like this, right? If a woman's not, remarried already, and the shliach didn't say b'fanei nechtam, so then maybe we would make the shliach redo the get, because what's our concern? We don't want her to get married, and then the baal's going to come, and then we're going to have a whole issue, right? So maybe we would do it. But the reality is she already got married. We're already in this issue. So now we're gonna pretend as if the husband's come. Like, he didn't, at least let him come, and then we'll have to go through this whole rigmarole. Why would we do this l'chatchila? So the reality is it's only a Xera in the first place. Once she already got married, we're not going to make her go through the whole trouble. And I guess we'll just hope that the husband doesn't come. If he comes, I don't know, we'll have some problems. But why create all these problems before he even came? But clearly Bezdin should have done a better job and made this shliach do what he was supposed to do from the get-go. So what time is it right now? 8:08. All right. So the Plukta, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, we're going to say that this machlokas, Rabba and Rava, is very similar to some other machlokas. So it's similar to machlokas Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Chad Amar She'ein B'kiyan Lishma. One of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shua ben Levi said the concern is, like Rabba's been saying this whole time, She'ein B'kiyan Lishma. The Chad Amar She'ein Eidim Mitzuyim L'Kaimo. So the Gemara says Tistayim Rabbi Shua ben Levi Hu Damar She'ein B'kiyan Lishma. It makes sense that Rabbi Shua ben Levi would hold similar to Rabba, that the concern is Lishma. Rabbi Shimon ben Abba, because Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, I see get to look at Rabbi Shua ben Levi. He once had a get and he brought it to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, and he asked him, and he said, do I need to say this or not? And Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi said to him, Lo tzrichas, you don't really need to do it. Because Lo Amru ela b'doros rishonim she'em b'kiyan lishma. We only had the requirement in earlier times when we were concerned that Sofrim didn't do this lishma. Avo b'doros ha'achronim the b'kiyan lishma lo. So therefore, you don't need to say it anymore. So the Gemara says, Tistayim, the Rabbi Shua ben Levi is the one whose concern was lishma. Because if its concern was ein edim in the kaimo, so then we wouldn't really care if the Sofer said a lishma. We would still require it. If the get's coming from Dina Sam, we'd have to do it. But the Gemara says, I don't even understand. Like, have you not been learning the previous Amud, right? Even Rabba himself, everyone agrees to the concern of Eidin Mishrim Mekaimo. So what's Rabbi Shua ben Levi talking about? The Ode, even in the Doros Achronim, we still had a Gzera that we still wanted Shliachs to say this. So I don't even understand what's Rabbi Shua. I don't understand the advice that Rabbi Shua ben Levi is giving Rabbi Shimon bar Abba. So the Gemara says, you're right. El Rabbi Shimon bar Abba in the Shachrina Hava B'Yidei. This was a totally different case. There were two shliachs. right? And the reason why the Gemara, when it's telling over the story, doesn't mention the second guy, right? So it's like if we were with Rabbi Reese, someone might tell over the story and said Rabbi Reese came in something. They're not going to say Rabbi Reese and Levi Khan. Like it's just that it's not, covered to Rabbi Reese. But the point is there were two Adim. Because there were two Adim, we no longer have the concern of Ein Adim between the Kaimo, right? These are the previous dafs. We already have Kiyum Shtaros. We also, even though there's a Gzeira, we saw in Amud Aleph, we don't have the concern of the Shema anymore, because once it's only a Gzeira, two Shliachs is, it's not, what's it called? It's not common, and it's not Shliach. And when it's not Shliach, we would no longer say the Gzeira. So that's kind of how that story went. Okay, Itmar. Bifnei Kama Nosla. So a guy is coming, a Shliach is coming from Medina Sayyam. He's about to say, how many people does he have to get together to do this? How does this process play? So Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina, we actually saw this a few times in previous stuff. So they had a machlokas, chadamar v'fnei shnayim, v'chadamar v'fnei shlosha. One of them said you need two people, and one of them said three. To stayim, Rabbi Yochanan, who the Amar b'fnei shnayim. It makes sense that Rabbi Yochanan would be the person to say that you only need two. How do I know? To Rav and Bar Rav Chisda, we had a story that Rav and Bar Rav Chisda, Icy got to look at Rabbi Yochanan. He came to Rabbi Yochanan, but Amar lay, and Rabbi Yochanan said to him, Zil havla ba'ape tray, go give it to her in front of two other people. So at this time, all right, seems like a pretty clear story. So it sounds like Rabbi Yochanan is the one who holds.
I'm not sure who's saying two and who's saying three right now.
Well, now we're just saying it seems from the story that Rabbi Yochanan would have been the one to say two, and therefore it must be Rav Chanina who said three. By the way, if you're keeping score, the previous sugya was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi and Rabbi Yochanan, and we seem to suggest that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said the concern was Lishma, which would, out of process elimination, Rabbi Yochanan would have had the concern of Ein Edim Misurin the Kaimo. So we kind of know Rabbi Yochanan Shitas and all this. He seems to be concerned about, or at least not be concerned about Lishma, right? Because everyone seems to be concerned about Ein Edim Misurin the Kaimo. He also thinks that you only need to do this in front of two people and not three people. But either way, the Gemara is going to say, to Stein. But the Gemara says, Lema b'ha kamiflagi. The whole machlokas, whether you need two people or three people, maybe it's the same exact machlokas. The man Amar b'fnei shnayim, Rabbi Yochanan, right, who says you only need two. Ksavar levisha ein b'ki and the shema. No one's saying edus right now, right? We're just having shliach tell two people that it was done properly. This is a sugya that we saw kind of earlier in the Masechta, but the reason why we need it to be in front of two people isn't so much that this guy is saying edus, but it's should the husband ever come and say, I never gave a get at all, we have two edim that heard from a shliach that said that he did give a get. So that's kind of why we would need two people and not three. But according to Rabbi Chanina, who says we need three, we need kiyum shtaros, as we learned in some difficult sugyas in Ksubis. Kiyum shtaros requires a bezdin of three, and if what we're doing right now is kiyum shtaros, so then you would need three, and maybe that's the machlokas, Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan isn't concerned about ein edim mitzvah in the kaimo, and Rabbi Chanina is. But as we just spoke out, the Gemara is going to say that doesn't really make sense if you put the two stories together. The Tizvara, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Amar Levi she'ein b'ki and l'shma. From the previous sugya, we proved that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was the one whose concern was l'shma. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Levi she'ein edim mitzvah in the kaimo. It must be that Rabbi Yochanan's concern is Levi she'ein edim mitzvah in the kaimo. So how many people should Rabbi Yochanan need? He should need three. But over here, we just proved that he was the one who said you only need two. So again, that can't be the machlokas going on here because the two sugyas wouldn't fit with each other. The ode, and more fundamentally, haraba islay deraba. We said everyone agrees that the concern is ein edim mitzvah in the kaimo. So if you're telling me that someone needs two, and everyone agrees the concern is ein edim mitzvah in the kaimo, you should never be able to do this in front of two. You should always require three. Ella dekuli alma be'inan edim mitzvah in the kaimo. Everyone agrees that the concern is ein edim mitzvah in the kaimo. So what's the machlokas here? 3 versus 2. It's b'shliach nasa aid, the aid nasa dayan kamiflagi. The machlokas is this shliach. Can he count as one of the three, or does he not count as one of the three? Do you need him and three more to do your kiyum shtaros, or can he be one of the three, and we can all be mekayim the shtar using him as part of the bezdin? Man damar b'fnei shnayim k'savar shliach nasa aid, the aid nasa dayan. Man damar b'fnei gimel k'savar shliach nasa aid, but the ein aid nasa dayan. The Gemara says even that's not a very good answer because the Kaim Alon, but Rabbanan aid Nasadai. This is something that we've already thought about and we've concluded. The Rabbanan said that aid Nasadai, so everyone should agree you only need 2. So why does someone need 3? The Mar Savar is really a Gzera. Mar Savar came into Isha Kshera Lahavias Aget because a woman is able to be the shliach in this case. Zimnin demaisa le itza b'samchi Allah. Now she clearly can't be part of the bezdin to be kind of shtar. So if she came in, you would definitely need 3 separate people. So the question is, do we ever allow 2? And are we concerned that maybe a woman might come and people will get confused and she'll take part of the bezdin? So there's a concern. People say, listen, just never do 2. Always do 3. That way, even if a woman comes, we'll always do 3. So that's one side. And other people are just not concerned. They say, listen, bring 2. If a woman is ever the shliach, they'll know you have to do 3. Okay. Either way, Tanya Kavseder Rabbi Yochanan, from here on, it's like super straightforward. Tanya Kavseder Rabbi Yochanan, Hamevi Get Medina Sayam, Benasnulaf, a person brings a get from Medina Sayam and he gives it to her below Amarla. He doesn't say, B'fanei Nechtam, B'fanei Nechtam, Yoti Vavlad Mamzer. It's a real problem. She needs to get divorced. Any kids that she had if she got remarried are mamzerim, diver of mayor. The chachamim ain't a vlad mamzer. The chachamim say like absolutely not. The vlad is not a mamzer. Peitzad yasa. What should you do? Yidlana. So redo the get. Take it back. Yidlana hemena. V'yachzer v'yidnenu labifnei shtayim. V'yomer b'fanei nechtam v'b'fanei nechtam. So this is a clear raya to Rabbi Yochanan that you only need to do this in front of 2 people. But the Gemara says like, hold up, like we just said this wild shita of Rav Meir. We got to get some clarity here. For Rav Meir, mishum dolo amar b'fanei nechtam yotzi v'havlad mamzer. I mean, you're really telling me that if someone just messed up this prat in the get process, she literally is not divorced, and any children she has from a future marriage are mamzerim? Gemara says in Rav Meir l'taimei. Rav Meir is very machmir in this Indian. If you mess up one prat when it comes to gittin, yoti v'avlad mamzer. So Bar Hadaya, Bar Hadaya once wanted to, prepare a get for someone, and Asal Kamed Rav Achi, and he came from Rav Achi, who was someone who was a bucky in this Indian, and Amar Le, the question was like, how much of the get do I literally need to watch the sofa right? Right. Do I have to be there the entire time, a little bit of the time? So Amar Le, Tarach Atalam, I'll call Os v'Os. You got to sit there and watch this guy write the whole get. So Asal Kamed Rav Ami Rav Asi, he did a little forum shopping and was like, I'm not comfortable with that answer. So he goes to Rav Ami and Rav Asi, and Amri Le, they said no. They said lo tzrichos. You don't need to see the entire thing. And even if you want to be machmer on yourself, so that you do want to watch the entire thing, nimsa atamoti laz al gittin rishonim. There's a lot of kitten in the world that people didn't do this, and we don't want this to become a thing where people feel that you needed to watch the entire thing. Chas v'shalom, people are motzi laz on other gittin. Rabba Bar Chana Isi Geta, Palgi Ichdev Kame, Upalga Lo Ichdev Kame. He had a get, he only saw them right half of it. So Asal Kame Rabbi Lazar and Amar Le, Afilu Lo Kasta Bar Lashita Achat Lashma. Even if there was only one line that was on Lashma, Rashi on Daf Tesvav says, what line are we talking about? It's the names. You got to say the names and the times. So long as that was on Lashma, then everything else is fine. Shovei no tzara. And Rav Ashi Amar, Afilu Kan on Bava Menal, Afilu Kan Kal Musa, Kan Megilta. You don't even need to literally see him write. As long as you hear the scratching of the quill on the parchment, even that's good enough. And Tanya, we'll just close with this. Tanya Kavase Rav Ashi, Hamevi get Medina Sayam, a person who's bringing a get over from Medina Sayam. Afilu hu b'bayit. The shliach was in the house. The sofer ba'aliyah, and the sofer was in the attic. Hu ba'aliyah, right? The shliach was in the attic. The sofer b'bayis. Afilu nichnas v'yote kol hayom kulo. And even if you were in and out of the house, kosher, it's fine. So we said, Huba bias, so for Baaliyah. What does that even mean? Hello, Kachazah. You didn't see anything, right? You're on different floors. It must be that it's fine because you at least heard the sofer doing his thing.